everyone, I'm back. 2 videos in 1 week? I know, madness. For those that are new here, I'm Natasha from Bright Sprout Consulting, and I'm a career and life coach. My goal is to help individuals feel more confident in the world of work and just in life in general. Usually, I only do 1 video a week on a Thursday, but this week, because the content and the interview I did with Emma from Fresh Sage was just so rich, I couldn't just post 1 video. So I posted one yesterday. If you haven't watched it, please go and have a look at that one. And in today's video, we continue our conversation about personal branding and why it's important. Enjoy. And do you meet that brief? Those are things I've never asked myself when I was starting off in the world of work, because again, I was so focused on, I have the degree, I have the skills, I can do this job, because it is less about, can you do this job, and more about, are you able to fit in with what you're creating?
Exactly. So this is the thing, is that, they're bringing you in to help deliver on the goal that they have for their business. And if you're not going to add the value, then you're not the right person. And if you're not going to be able to sort of fit in and take the business to the next level, why are they going to spend the money on you? And it happens as part of the interviewing process, but it also, if we think about the person's journey through the organization or through their time with the company. Companies are looking at you when you join in terms of whether you'll be a good fit. But then as you sort of slot in and settle in, they're starting to assess, they're assessing 2 things. Can you do maybe 3 things. Can you do the job that's being required of you? How can you add value? Like, are you valuable in other areas other than just this one aspect that we've now brought you in for? And what's the long-term tenure? Like, do you have capacity to move through the ranks and grow and be a superstar? Or are you somebody worth investing in, essentially, right? So I think, I've spoken a lot about the personal brand and why it's critical. I hope the pennies are sinking in for those who haven't figured out their personal brand. But I know that the one thing they're going to be saying is, how do I know what my personal brand is? And how do I figure this all out? And I wish I could give you my magic wand and say, here, ding, one personal brand done.
So prior to us connecting, I was sharing that my big dream is that everybody could go on the journey of self-discovery that I went on with you. So obviously, when I made the decision to start my own business, I reached out because I knew that this is what you did now. And you took me on quite an extensive journey of unpacking what it is, who it is I am, and what it is I want to be known for in the world, based on who I am. It was very enlightening. And I only went through this journey when I was 39. And again, there are some things I wish that I had known when I was younger, because it would have been easier to package all of this stuff had I been younger and open to the discussion around, who you are is perfect. Let's just see how we package it so that the best version of that is displayed to people. I think a lot of times young people are like, they go into the world of work and they're like, I need to be like that person to get ahead. I must be that person. And you don't have to be that person. You can be yourself. No. You just need to figure out how you package yourself in a way that other people buy into that and see the value that you can potentially add to the business. Had I known that before, I think I would have been I would have looked I would have looked like this earlier, I feel.
Totally. I mean, I think both of us feel the same ways. If we'd figured out that journey earlier on, it would have just transformed us. However, I think we do need to go through the journey sometimes. You know, sometimes it does take time. I wholeheartedly agree with you. Don't. So when I was saying I was studying those people who were successful, in my heart, I knew I couldn't be that person. So thankfully, I didn't try and cookie cutter their approach. It wouldn't have worked for me. So being your authentic self is critical, because you can try as hard as you want to be somebody else. It just doesn't work. You're inauthentic. You create this persona that you struggle to live up to. You almost feel like you're living a lie, right? If you're trying to emulate somebody else's approach or life or whatever. But there are some things you can do. So like you and I have been on plenty of, and I'm sure you have, I'm just sort of totally assuming right now, but plenty of psychometric tests and over the years, and personality profiling. Every time I've done one of those personality profiles, I've learned something new about myself. And there is a free one that you can do. I think it's 16 if I don't know, we'll find that one, we'll link it. But you can do it, and it gives you a whole lot of insights in terms of who you are and what your natural style is. So a simple example is I'm an introvert. Now, if I had to try and emulate somebody who's an extrovert, it would completely drain me in terms of who I am. But understanding that I'm an introvert, I know how to maximize that in different ways in my career, if that makes sense. So yeah, I would start there. I'd start understanding what your personality profile is, and understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are. And then, now here's an interesting lesson I learned very early on in my career. When you know what your strengths and weaknesses are, the natural tendency is to try and fix all the weaknesses. Like, let's make the wrongs right. But that's not how you're going to grow a really successful personal brand and grow very successful in your career. Those who have been successful, they do it differently. They look at, okay, obviously you want to try and minimize the weaknesses. You don't want these gaping holes that are going to really like hold you back. But instead of pouring all your energy into that, rather focus on maximizing your strengths and working with other people to fill the weaknesses. I
always tell people, do what you do best and outsource the rest. For me, it's my mantra that I also learned through my career, because I also started trying to fill the hole, but it's a bottomless hole, because as good as you get, you'll never be great at the thing that you need to develop. You'll never be fantastic at it. You'll be mediocre at best. So why spend all that energy trying to, fill that hole? Rather look at where you can use the networks that you have to try and fill it, or change the way you work, or something. There are different ways you can be,
or work with your team in a different way, because you'll find there's a team member who you work really well with, and their strength is your weakness and your strength is theirs, and if you work together, you can really achieve awesome things together. So there's different ways.
When I worked at my wine company, I had a peer who was the opposite. When I say the opposite, we did those assessments, those personality assessments. Her profile was exactly the opposite to mine.
Nice.
And we had initially started butting heads because our approaches were so different, but very soon we realized we could leverage that and create a working environment where we could both do what we loved, and in so doing, we can, progress our team and do things better, faster, more creative. It worked so well. So I'm a big supporter of, don't just also hang out with people that are the same as you.
Go like you.
Go and find those networks, those individuals that complement your skills. I think that's the thing that I learned over time, that it's about complimenting as opposed to, oh no, they're different to me. So what?
Yes.
They're complimenting what
Yes.
you don't necessarily have.
Yeah. When you were just saying skills now, it brought me to one of the other aspects, the around building your personal brand is obviously based on the assumption that you've got skills and expertise. So that's step one. I mean, that's our disclaimer, is we're expecting that you are able to do the thing you're saying you could do.
Yeah, because that comes back to the being inauthentic. Because if you're selling a brand and you can't actually, you're selling yourself as doing something, but you can't actually do it, that is the quickest way to lose credibility and for people to see that you fake. And
exactly. So like in my case, so what I was going to say there is that when you start realizing, so maybe you've studied one thing that's very different from where you want to be. So how do you get there if you don't have the skills? Well, you need to start developing the skills along the way and make sure that you grow in the things that you want to do and want to learn. So like in my corporate position I was at, I had an opportunity to study further to get the degree that they wanted me to have in order to be, eligible for the next promotion, essentially. And I was like, why? I mean, I can, but it's not going to bring me any joy.
I don't want to.
Didn't want to. And I knew that they weren't necessarily going to pay for me to do something completely different from where I wanted to be. So I had to invest in myself and start upskilling myself in the areas that I wanted to grow in. So, whilst I've done a radical shift from HR into branding, it hasn't just been, I think I'm going to be a brander today. No. No. Whilst I'm self-taught, I have learned and I have gone on courses and I've studied and the University of Google has been my best friend in terms of learning little bits and pieces along the way. So growing your career in a different direction means that you do need to upskill yourself so that you are seen as the expert in that area.
One thing I wanted to pick your brain on, Ems, is imposter syndrome. I know it wasn't on our list of things to talk about.
Oh my goodness.
But it just came to me now that, sometimes you know who you are, but you tell yourself that you're not great, or you kind of speak yourself out of that being your personal brand. What's your view on that?
Imposter syndrome is huge. It's a big thing that affects so many people, myself included. I think every single one of us in different stages of our journey have had to deal with it or deal with it regularly. It's very easy to talk yourself out of doing something because of it. That's why I was talking about being brave and having courage, because the only way you're going to be confident to do the thing and be the person you want to be is if you practice and do the thing and be the person you want to be. So, it's going to take, once you figure out the kind of person you want to be, it's going to take action, practice. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to get it wrong. You're not going to be perfect, but you've got to keep at it. I don't know if that answers the question. It's funny that you mentioned that, because my husband was saying the other day, he's like, you should do a course on imposter syndrome. I'm like, really though?
No, and
because so many people struggle with it.
And it impacts how you show up. So it impacts your personal brand if you have any doubts about how it will land. Because for me, it's about how it lands that you are obsessing over.
Absolutely. So, I think that we worry so much about getting it right that we don't do it at all. But then, like if I understand what my purpose is and I understand the kind of brand I'm wanting to build, like one of the purposes behind why I do what I do and why I love doing what I do is I love helping other people figure out what their purpose is. Because I feel every single one of us have a calling and we're all called to do something in this world. One of the main reasons why I do what I do is to help people figure out what their purpose is and bring that alive in the world. Because I think each one of us have a calling and something that we were called to do. And if I can help people figure out what that is, then I get to make the world a better place. So helping Natasha figure out what makes her unique and awesome and special so that she goes and lives that purpose, it's a huge reward. I mean, I get a kick out of it. It's awesome. But the reason why I do that, like coming back to the whole imposter syndrome side of things, is that if you know what your purpose is and why you're doing this thing, you're going to push harder. It's going, like, having that reason, and it drives you to do the thing. It drives you to push through the imposter syndrome. So that's probably one of the biggest tips I would give somebody, is that if you are struggling with imposter syndrome, is get back to your purpose and let that push you to do the thing. Like, if I had to sum it all up, it would be figure out you and what makes you unique and different and what you're called to do in this world. And then see where the gaps are and the things that you need to fill and work on and grow and develop in. Go do those things regularly, consistently, and just show up as your best version of yourself every single day. And over time, it'll lead you down certain paths. And then you'll get to that fork in the road when you be like, okay, do I do this or do I do that? Let your personal brand guide you into the next decision. Side note, best way to make a decision. I don't know how you make decisions, but best way I found is, if you've got faced with two big decisions, make the decision in your mind that night, go to bed. The next morning, if you wake up like, I'm ready, then you've made the right decision. If you have this like, in your gut, and like something's not feeling good, it's the wrong decision.
I normally just flip a coin and hope for.
Well, there's that.
Could go either way.
It could. So pick one. Let's see what happens.
That's a very good tip. I personally make lists.
Pros and cons.
But, on my channel, I talk about it all the time, that lists are a thing for me. I know not everybody works that way, but I do a pros and cons list. And
yes,
when
I use that to help you make the decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, I do go on how I feel about the decision. So once I've done my list and, it logically makes sense for me to go in X direction, I do go on what my gut is making me feel at that time. Because,
yes,
I am a firm believer that you know yourself and you know what's the right thing for you. You just need to listen to yourself. So sometimes my list fails me.
And then I think her name was Alexandra Franzen, says, then you need to rely on your HUT, which is your heart and your gut, and what both of them are saying.
Very smart.
Yeah, so I think that would be my advice in terms of building a personal brand, and then thinking about it in the world of work. It's, so obviously getting the job is one thing, but you also need to look at how you're going to grow your own career, and what is your company looking for in the next level, and what's important to them, and are those things important to you too? Is there like a good blend, because then it's a good fit? And I mean, they're looking for somebody who's going to be an incredible brand ambassador, and your personal brand needs to fit into that. So I hope those tips have been helpful.
Fabulous.
If you have any other questions, please shout.
I don't have any questions right now. I'm going to pop Emma's details in the description box. So if you are looking to develop your brand, or you're looking for a nudge in the right direction, I can highly recommend Emma. She's helped me, and she is still continuing to help me. Thanks so much, Emma, for joining me. It was great chatting to you.
Yeah, some good discussion. Thank you so much for having me.
We've come to the end of our video today. I
hope you got some useful information about why you should be thinking about your personal brand and what you should be doing to build it so that you're successful in the world of work. If you like this format of video, please drop a comment or give it a like, just so that I know if I should continue with this kind of format. Join me next week, where I give you a bit of an update in terms of what's been happening since we've moved to Johannesburg. I know I haven't said much since we've got here, but join me for a life update. As mentioned earlier, I am a career and life coach. If you would like some assistance in developing your personal brand, then give me a shout. All of my details will be in the description box below.